If you are one of the 6 million people who watch the Tony Awards every single year, then this video is for you. I was fortunate enough to have a conversation with Marjorie Horne, who has been the stage manager for the Tony Awards for the past 15 years, about exactly what it takes to put up Broadway's biggest event. My name is Kent, and this is your half-hour call.
Half hour, please. This is your half-hour call. Half hour, please.
Alrighty friends, welcome back to another episode of Half Hour Call. If you are here for the first time, welcome. My name is Kent, and you are watching Half Hour Call, where we shine the spotlight on technical theater. And make sure you stick around until the end of the video, where Marjorie will share some of the secrets that most people do not know about the Tony Awards. Let's watch. Thank you so much for coming onto the show today. I'm very excited to get to talk to you about the Tony Awards.
Thank you, Kent. Thank you for asking me.
For those of you that aren't obsessed with you like I am, what is your role in the Tony Awards?
Mostly the Tonys, for most of the time, were in a Broadway theater, and they were stage managed by a theater stage manager. And the shows would bring things over, and it was very minor sets and all of that. And there was a Broadway stage manager, he's still around, named Alan Hall. I want to make sure I plug him because he's extraordinary. He had been doing it since the 70s. There were 2 years that it became a big TV special, and they didn't use him and didn't use a theater stage manager. And all the shows went to Equity and said, we don't have anybody that's talking our language. Because of what happened with Alan Hall, in the Tony contract, there is a paragraph that says the TV office, the producers, must have at least one theater stage manager from the beginning of the Tonys onwards. And I now hold that contract because Alan Hall brought me in. We both worked them for 2 years, and then he retired. The TV stage managers are very different. They don't come on until the week of the show when we move into Radio City. On the other side, I start my job, Howard and I start our job the day of the nominations. Mm-hmm. And we get to go to the nominating broadcast. And then we run back to the office and start calling all the musicals that have been nominated and their offices. So our contacts are the general managers and the stage managers. So the stage managers of each show are involved from the beginning. The director on the TV show is the person who calls, and all of the different departments pretty much go on their own. The stage managers for the shows that are performing, they come in, they take care of their companies, but as soon as they hit the stage, the DGA stage managers take care of what's happening, and they're just kind of supervising, helping the DGA stage managers. Okay, this is where there's going to be a fast change, this is where this entrance happens, so that they're coordinated, but they're not part of the show per se. So it was certainly not anything that was in my peripheral vision of ever being that kind of part of Broadway. And now I am. It's an extraordinary job. One of the things that I say is that because I have that job and I'm where I am in my career, I can say whatever I want to the general managers. I can say whatever I want to the producers. And I have a great relationship with a lot of them that I never had before. And the camaraderie is extraordinary. But I was an actress and a dancer. And I came to the city from Miami. And I had danced on cruise ships on the weekends. But I don't sing. I was a good dancer. I was a pretty good actress. But if you want to be in musical theater and you don't sing, doesn't work. So I had, in 1971, I had been doing a job here, a job there, showcases here in the city, but I wasn't making a living. I got a job at a very famous summer stock company called Allenbury Playhouse in the Pocono Mountains. And John Travolta was part of that company. He got his equity card in that company. And I got another job fairly quickly in a straight play on the road. I did Philadelphia. I started out as the prop person understudy, and it was a very serious play called No Place to Be Somebody. I had a terrible, terrible experience. I was very insecure about my acting to begin with, but the director, who was also the stage manager, just had it in for me. And I came back and I said, I can't do this. I cannot take that scrutiny anymore on myself. And so I literally for a year, I studied acting, but I didn't do anything. And one day my roommate came home and said, you got to get out of the house. Circle Repertory Theater, which at that point was just down the block from where I live, she said, go and look for something, do something. And I went, I got interviewed, and I got put on as the assistant stage manager. And it was the perfect fit for me. And I went on and I started working. And within 3 years, I was making a living. But let's talk about the specifics of the Tony.
What's the production process like? You talked about when the stage managers, when the 3 different types of stage managers are brought on board.
Right.
But what's the process like?
So the process is, the first thing that has to happen is that each show that we know we're going to perform, the musical nominees, that's the first section. Howard and I are on the phone with the general managers and the stage managers, and the first thing that has to get set up is a creative meeting. What are they going to do on the show? Are they going to do one of their numbers? Are they going to do a mishmash? They only get 3 minutes and 45 seconds at the most. Everybody, the director, the producer, the company manager, all the designers are all at the table. The choreographer, everybody is at the table, and our whole team is at the table. And so we set up what is it going to do, and then we go down the line for each department. The music department sets up times, what's going to happen, what kind of music do we need. The set people talk to each other. There's a show and tell about what our theater looks like. How does that fit into their stage? Howard and I go through, what are your props? What are your set pieces going to be? Who's got microphones? What are your costumes? Do they need something special in that department? The company managers have to send us the cast list, plus the stage managers, and we do a budget for the shows, and it costs a lot of money for the shows to do what they do. So that also is, where are they in their money position of what can they afford to be doing.
And real quick, I want to clarify for the folks that are watching this, because I was really surprised to learn this when I first learned, but it costs the shows themselves money to appear on the Tony Awards. Like, they foot the bill for almost everything, right?
Correct. Shows go off into their own theaters, and they start rehearsing and figuring out what they're going to do and who's going to be in the show. One of my specific jobs is that I coordinate with the TV script people, and they have to know every single prop, every single set piece, every single person's name, what's their role, what do they do microphone wise, if there are quick changes. So I coordinate with script and give them all that information. The next thing that happens, this is a good story. Remember those 2 years we went to the Beacon? Okay, so what happened is that Radio City had booked a show. And so we couldn't get into Radio City. So we went down across the street from me, that was very convenient, to the Beacon Theater. There's no backstage, the Beacon. None, zip. We actually had to build tents on the street for all the set pieces, and a huge tent in the back for the actors. So our set designer, Steve Bass, came up with an LED wall. And when we moved back to Radio City, we realized how gorgeous it was. And now we use it permanently. The next thing we do, the next big thing, is what's called a scratch tape. They show us what they're going to do. And our director and their director and choreographer work on, where are my camera shots? And then we start scheduling Radio City, the rehearsals at Radio City. Now, again, in the old days, when there were 6 or 7 shows, everybody could come in and have an hour and a half, and it fit into our Thursday and Friday. We could only rehearse Thursdays and Fridays. When we started expanding, it didn't fit into Thursday and Friday anymore, so we had to start figuring out what show doesn't have a Wednesday matinee, what show is a one-act short show, like a band's visit. We send a bus for their cast after their show, and they come into Radio City at 10 o'clock at night.
Oh my gosh.
And do their rehearsal. Their rehearsal process is they go to the recording studio at the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, depending on where they are in the Radio City portion. They do all of their recording. They come in. It's already mixed. Everything the orchestra plays, the vocals are recorded for the choir, the chorus things. And so they come in and they do their number. They space. They have an hour and a half to space and do everything they need to do. They're out of there, and we've got the next show in.
Wow. So is that, when you're saying they record things, so for the individual performances, is the music and you said certain choral vocal bits are pre-recorded?
Are pre-recorded. All the solos are solos, and our live solos. This is a secret that I can tell you. One of the secrets that most of the people in your audience will not know is that Radio City isn't as big as you think it is. We don't have room for all the companies to get dressed and makeup and everything in Radio City. So every single company goes to their theater, gets in full hair and makeup, and then comes to Radio City. And then they go back. Now, how does that happen? There is a full dress rehearsal Sunday morning, starting around 9 o'clock in the morning till noon. Everybody comes full hair and makeup. Everybody. And then they go back to their theater, and sometimes they'll do a performance because the theater is they still have a matinee. What we do is I figure out how many people are in the company, how many nominees are there in the company. So my job is breaking every show down into buses and vans. So if there's one nominee, right, that person has to have their own vehicle with all their wardrobe people. And at night, their glam team. But on Sunday morning, they overlap. They all come into the theater, into Radio City, and we have an audience section that's off to them. And one of the most extraordinary moments of the Tony Awards is Sunday morning when 3 to 4 companies are in there at the same time in full costumes and are mixing with each other. And it's just thrilling. It's just thrilling. In the evening, the nominees walk the red carpet. They come in, and the other thing that we have to do is I have to make a timing sheet, a schedule of how long does each nominee need to get dressed and then back into costume, and pull them from the audience at the right time to take them up to meet their costume of their stage manager and the wardrobe people, get them dressed, get them on the stage, and then back up there in order to be in their seats for their nominations. And that's a very detailed schedule too. And then sometimes, you know, one actor will need 15 minutes, and so we'll pull, and don't forget we have to pull during commercials. We can't pull during the show. So they get pulled during commercials, and they get reseated during commercials. And then some actress will need 45 minutes to get ready. Shrek needed his own space to get into makeup in Radio City. We allowed him to do that, and that took 2 hours. So he had to be there at like 7 o'clock in the morning for dress rehearsal. And then he was back, and he had to have time to get out of all that makeup for his nomination. But that schedule is minute to minute for when people are pulling out, when people are pulling in, how many casts do we have in the theater at the same time? We can't. So it's very convoluted. There have been a couple of times now that we do opening numbers with everybody. So sometimes I have to, so they come in costume. Some of them have to go back to their theaters and then come back for their numbers.
That kind of flows right into talking about the challenges of working on a high-profile live event. I feel like that must be at least top 10 of your challenges, getting everyone into and out of
the costumes and making sure that they have enough time and everything. And the wonderfulness is working with each of the stage managers of the shows, because there are stage managers that have done it even more than me, have been on, not every year like I have, but that have done shows all in the 80s and the early 90s and stuff, that they're still working. And so they've done 10 shows, 10 Tony Awards. Then there's a stage manager that will come in and it's their first time. And Howard and I will sit down with them and say, listen, this is, there's a lot here. We're here for you. Don't you worry. We'll take care of you. And it's overwhelming.
You've got a lot to choose from with the past 15 ceremonies, but what's been your favorite memory of working the Tony Awards?
One of the most wonderful moments was the year that we did the In Memoriam with all the casts singing and the elevators came up. Again, getting all those people in the right places and the right time and bringing them back, and some in costume, some in but watching from backstage as the elevator rose for that. Every year I get to do it, I just feel so, how did I get here? How extraordinary is what I get to do for those 6 weeks. When we first started, we only had 4 weeks from nomination to the end. Whew. And because the gentleman added more shows and more things, we've now are at 6 weeks. But it's 6 weeks, that's my job. When I go to the party on Sunday night, I'm out of there.
What's something that a lot of people don't realize about the Tony Awards?
Sunday morning is a dress rehearsal with audience. It's only there are very few people. It's not all up, it's not a big audience. And they're, of course, not allowed to sit in where the nominations are. And so that's a little bit of a secret that, so that the companies do get the feeling of reaction. And what's fun is some of the star presenters will show up and do their rehearsal in front for that dress rehearsal. It'll be the first time. So we're even sometimes, because that's a whole different, I don't have anything to do with that part of the show. So I even get surprised sometimes when somebody shows up in their streetwear because they don't have to get dressed for that dress rehearsal, and so it's really fun to be surprised when a real star presenter shows up for that rehearsal.
All right, well, before we sign off, do you have any advice for folks that are up-and-coming stage managers that might want to follow in your footsteps, either into the Tony Awards or just into stage management in general?
My suggestion is follow your imagination wherever it can go. If you love theater, you will find your way and what you want to be doing in theater. And also, it doesn't have to only be theater. One of the things that I did, now I'm a woman on my own. When I had a hit show, I knew had a job for a couple of years. I went and volunteered at the Museum of Natural History, and I became an archaeologist. I've been going on digs. And I'll go 8 weeks and I'll go on a dig. And I'll come back and get a theater job. And I went to college when I was 40 years old. The other thing that I've done is I've gone into politics. I went and volunteered on a political campaign for Geraldine Ferraro in '92. So don't narrow yourself to just being like your parents say. You have to find something where you're going to make a living. There are other choices, and you can still come back to theater.
All right, well, thank you so much, Marjorie, for coming on the show today. It was so wonderful to get to talk to you about the Tony Awards. And thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. My name is Kent, and this has been your Half Hour Call. This snazzy feathered production assistant, as well as other cool stage management merchandise, is now available at kentjamescollins.com/store. Link in the description below.